American leadership has been tested in a number of different venues across the globe, from the wars in Ukraine and Gaza to tense relations with China. But in order to reach a peaceful resolution to these global issues, the U.S. must rely on diplomacy. In his new book, The Art of Diplomacy, How American Negotiators Reached Historic Agreements That Changed the World, Ambassador Stuart Eizenstat examines how significant domestic and international agreements reached over the past 5 decades can help provide a framework for the U.S. in its future diplomatic endeavors. The book, out Tuesday, also includes a posthumous foreword written by Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State under President Richard Nixon, before he died last November at 100 years old. In that passage, Kissinger says, quote, "The choice to negotiate is not a sign of weakness, but a necessity in confronting the world's greatest challenges." And joining us now is the author of The Art of Diplomacy, Stuart Eizenstat. He was the U.S. ambassador to the European Union from 93 to 96 and served in 6 presidential administrations, both sides of the aisle. He currently serves as the chairman of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum Council, appointed by President Biden. Welcome, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Good to be with you. Let's just start in a very basic way. What makes a good diplomatic negotiator?
Realizing that you're not in a poker game where it's winner take all. In a negotiation with sovereign countries, it has to be a win-win situation. And the negotiator has to have the following characteristics: a fierce determination to succeed, political courage to take on, oftentimes, your own political base, to take on popular positions, intelligence, judgment, and preparation. Bob Lighthizer, Trump's trade negotiator, said preparation, preparation, preparation. The capacity to listen, to hear the other side, to put yourself in their shoes. It's what my former boss, Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, called unsympathetic empathy. Building trust in personal relationships. Jim Baker did that with Shevardnadze, the foreign minister of the Soviet Union, when he took him to Jackson Hole and broke down a lot of the barriers which made German unification possible. Creativity to get over impasses. And that's why I call it the art of diplomacy. It's like a painter painting a painting. Leverage, positive and negative. Incentives like trade benefits, arms sales, which facilitated, for example, the Camp David Accords, but negative ones as well, economic sanctions, and the ultimate one, military force. And I do in the book, John, really look at a hard look of when, where, and how military force should be used, because we've had very uneven results, to say the least. And last is stamina. A negotiation will last months, sometimes years, and it's like a marathon that always ends in a sprint at the last couple of days. Kissinger coined the term shuttle diplomacy for 13 days up and back between Israel, Syria, and Jordan. And when I negotiated the Kyoto protocols on global warming, for 5 days we averaged maybe 3 hours of sleep. Jimmy Carter at Camp David, again, a marathon with a sprint at the end. With Begin, almost no sleep, with 20 drafts that he did.
Let me ask you about how all of that work, which you've described, which is patient, requires restraint, all the things you've described seem to have been squeezed out of modern partisan politics, where, particularly in presidential campaigns, discussions about other nations are often described as, we're going to defeat them. It's not win-win. How does what you've described coexist in today's partisan world?
So partisanship is a terrible disability for the United States for a negotiator representing the country, because Senator Vandenberg many decades ago said that politics in terms of foreign policy should end at the water's edge. It doesn't now. And so if you're negotiating on, let's say, Ukraine, and you have a Congress that holds up aid for 6 months, or in climate change, you had a piece on climate change. I negotiated a climate change agreement. But what happens is we have no consistency on climate change. Depending on who is elected, we're either in or we're out. And we've gone from Bush being George H.W. Bush initially in, then out, then Clinton in, then Bush 1, 2 out, then Trump out again, then Clinton in. I mean, this is not a way to negotiate. So that polarization is terrible. And last, if you take the nuclear agreement that we had in 2015 with Iran. The fact that President Trump pulled out of it shows an instability. Who's going to negotiate with a country when you know the next presidential election may totally change the prescription?
Let me ask you as a final question, because you've done so much work on the Holocaust and remembrance of it, and dedicated really your career to it in part. The Anti-Defamation League has said that the number of anti-Semitic incidents have increased in the U.S. by more than 300%. As someone who has had such an intimate understanding of the history of the Holocaust, does that number surprise you, or has it always been embedded in that history that you know so well?
When I was ambassador to the European Union under Clinton, my late wife and I used to go all over Europe. We could always tell where the Jewish institutions were, the synagogues, the cemeteries, the day schools, because they had armed guards. And we said, thank God we don't have to have that in the United States. Pre-October 7, we now do. And it's gotten so much worse. Our campuses have become battlegrounds. There's a tremendous amount of ignorance about the whole creation of the state of Israel. And when they talk about from the river to the sea, we shall be free, I mean, this is really calling for the elimination of the whole state of Israel. It shows a total lack of understanding. So one of the things we're doing at the Holocaust Museum is we're emphasizing education, not just to look back at what happened, but to learn the lessons of what happens when one group turns against another, when good people fail to act, when misinformation and racism occur, because the Nazi ideology was a racist ideology as well. So we need education, education, and education. There's so much ignorance about the Holocaust. There's so much ignorance about anti-Semitism. And this has to be attacked. It's just unimaginable. One last point, please. When I gave the speech at the Days of Remembrance with President Biden and with the Speaker Johnson and with Jeffries, I said, just imagine what Holocaust victims who came to the United States after the war think when they see people yelling, death to the Jews, death to Israel, when they have to see armed guards at synagogues. It's as if history is repeating itself. So we have to be extremely cautious. The Holocaust occurred in part because we did not act quickly enough against Hitler when we could have done something. Now it's terribly important that we act quickly against this hate and misinformation.
Ambassador Stuart Eizenstat, the book is The Art of Diplomacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.